still got a question mark on what it is, but now I'm going to unwrap. It's not a Christmas present, but it's almost like a Christmas present. So what is it that we're actually going to bring to the market? It's CoQ10. We're bringing CoQ10 into our Southern African region, and we are super excited, and I'm sure you're going to be very excited by the time you've heard all the information and the reasons why we need it. And as Drew pointed out, we didn't take it lightly when we brought this product into the market. It took a long time to create it in the way that Neolife would want to deliver it. So it's not a newfangled ingredient. It's something that's very common to the human body, but very important. But it wasn't something we were simply going to jump on a wave because everybody else was doing things. It took us a while to get this naturally sourced ingredient and put a whole lot of other combinations of ingredients together, which we're going to talk about, just to make it all a very much highlighting the Neolife differences as there always are. Right, so CoQ10, that's what the container looks like. And this is what you're going to enjoy using when you purchase this, and it's available as of now. So we hope that you'll be excited enough to want to do that. But let's look at what's in a name. CoQ10 actually has a couple of different versions of the same name, so just not to be confusing, but just so that you're not confused if you do see them in different aspects and contexts. The full version of the name actually is coenzyme Q10. That's what CoQ10 stands for, but generally speaking, most people just refer to it as CoQ10. Ubiquinone is another version of the same name or the same ingredient. So you might see that, and in fact, in the slides, we've actually got that reference because scientifically it's used quite commonly. So when you see it, don't think, oh, we're talking about something else. We're talking about CoQ10. Yeah, so what is it really? It's a fat-soluble substance. It's a vitamin-like compound. It's not a vitamin, but it's actually something that the body crucially needs. A very powerful antioxidant too. And its main functions, being an antioxidant, so it works in all parts of the body, is an energy transfer molecule. And that'll make more sense a little later as we go along. But you'll see that it's related to energy right through the system. But what's exciting is we're going to take you right inside the cell to see where the energy is made. So it's found in every cell of the body, and particularly those with high energy demand. So you're going to find it everywhere because every cell needs its own energy. But obviously some organs and parts of the body work harder, if you like. There's more demand on them literally on a daily basis, and minute to minute, second to second basis. So you'll find that CoQ10 is more important very specifically and is noticed when it's depleted in those particular areas of the body. Right, so just back to our normal launching pad, which is our Cellular Nutrition, and we're world renowned for this. In fact, we've been pioneers in this area and world leaders then, of course, in cellular energy or in the terminology of energy. And we're going to just add a couple of new concepts to this energy story. So for those of you looking in for the first time, we're always talking about cells because that's what you and I are made of. And it's the quality of every single cell, whichever cell it is, which has got a job of work to do in the body. It's the quality of the cell, the way that it can be able to work given the fact that it's properly nourished, that causes us to actually have good health. And conversely, if it doesn't work efficiently and nutrients can't get into the cell, then obviously we will be feeling like that cell looks a little bit tired and a little bit jaded. But that can be changed simply by using the right nutrients in the right proportions at the right times. So what we're doing now is we're going to go inside the cell. Now that looks, I know, pretty complicated. In fact, it's a lot more complex than that. But I wanted to show you that we've drawn that orange circle and the green arrows, but in fact, what are those green arrows, excuse me, and where do they go? They're different nutrients, we know that, and we know it's important to get them in, but we haven't really experimented and explored what goes on inside the cell. So I'm going to highlight, you'll see there at the bottom there, something called the mitochondria, which are those little squiggly things at the bottom of the cell. That's what we're interested in. We're not going to go about all the other things this evening, just that particular thing. So you don't have to be a biologist or a biochemist to understand this. I think you can see our pictures are pretty simple graphics, but we do have to understand a little bit more about how our body works to understand why some nutrients, when they're not available, can impact our bodies and our health so dramatically. So we're looking at the mitochondria, and it's a word that many of you will know, probably from your biology days at school. Some for you, it might be a new word, but that is actually where we're going to go, that little squiggly little apparatus in there. What's important, though, just to highlight right now, is we talk about in that simple graphic that I've got there, the sides as orange circles. We've always been talking about the membranes of the cell, and that's, of course, the outer membrane, the outer coating, which is crucial because its structure and its function determine whether nutrients can actually dock on the cell, get in the cell, and let that little cell work the factory that it is. But actually, those little compartments that you're seeing inside the cell is pretty much like little rooms in a factory. They've all got a wall or some sort of area that keeps them in the shape that they are to enable them to perform their function. And so interestingly, all these little components inside the cell also have membranes. So we simply just elaborate on our story of membranes and realize that if the outer one has to be in good condition, so do the inner ones. And so you'll see some of the things we've even put in this product are related specifically to the quality of membranes. But now we're talking about membranes inside the cell and specifically these mitochondria. So this is what this little squiggly thing looks like, basically. And we don't have to go and be able to draw it or even explain it excessively, other than to understand that it does exist. And it's well known, the terminology mitochondria, so you can educate others on that. And you'll see that it's got membranes, an inside one and an outside one. And that's what we are specifically interested in. Amazingly, CoQ10 is related to these membranes. And this little component, it looks very small, but actually has, it wields a huge amount of power, CoQ10. But in actual fact, it works in this inner membrane of the mitochondria. That's actually where CoQ10 is going to be used. And bearing in mind that these are on every single cell, but obviously the more hardworking ones are going to have more of these mitochondria than others. And so in that case, CoQ10 is more sought after and more necessary in those organs or systems of the body. So if we just look at it, the way it would be scientifically, that's kind of breaking up the cell. And this little part here is CoQ10. And what it actually helps happen in this mitochondria is the food that we eat, the food particles that get through the outer membrane into the cell, get to this mitochondria, they combine with CoQ10 and enable that cell to make energy. That's basically what happens. So you can appreciate you've eaten some foods, perhaps there's no CoQ10 available or not much. The energy program is not going to be efficient. And that's going to impact on the way we feel, and actually not only how we feel, but how the organs in the body are actually working. So that's where CoQ10 is needed. That is where it's most important, and a small molecule, but wields a lot of power. So that is why the product, if you look at the label, it says CoQ10, but it also says a mitochondrial energy complex. So we are talking about where this energy actually gets made. And we don't have to make it complicated when we're explaining it. I'm just wanting you to get a sense of the fact that energy is more than us just jumping around and being fit. It's about every part of our body being energized so it can do its work. And that's quite different from just being a fit person. Everything has to work in order that we can feel energetic and fit. So let's just give ourselves a reminder where in the cell it's found. It's in the mitochondria. What are the mitochondria? They're commonly known as the powerhouse of the cell. So you call them the mitochondria, the powerhouse of the cell where the cellular energy is actually made. And it's in the membrane of that mitochondria. So for those of you familiar with the products, some of the ingredients are going to make sense because we haven't just put CoQ10 into this product. We've put a combination, as we always do, to make sure that it works. And of course, some of them will relate to the fact that this is a membrane we're looking at. Right, so let's look at why there is a need to take a supplement of CoQ10. Drew made reference to the fact that this is actually a very popular supplement. Even medical people actually recommend this. I've actually been in a consultation with one who, when I made reference to CoQ10, they said, yeah, for sure. So this is not something that's unfamiliar to the medical fraternity as well. So why do we have to supplement, or why would there be a need? Well, okay, because it's such an important component in our physical aspect of our bodies, obviously it has to be present. So the body is able to synthesize it or manufacture it. But like most things in our human body, as we age, so some of those things are less efficient at being made for various reasons. But you'll see that, just from probably at the age of 20, 30, it starts to decline. At 40 and 50, we're almost down to 40 to 50% less manufacture of this. Here you can see ubiquinone or CoQ10 than when we were much younger. And of course, as we get older and we're tending to be living longer for various reasons, we're actually going to be less efficient at actually making CoQ10. And of course, there's the well-known dietary deficiencies that we are encountering literally daily. And every time we ever talk about any products or health, we have to talk about our diet. And we all know, and we all know the things we should be eating. And in fact, when we talk in Neolife, we almost remind ourselves of the same products and the same foods, the whole grains, the vegetables, the fatty fish that we should be eating, the nuts and seeds. And in fact, those are the very foods that we find CoQ10 in. But you'll find that we also have other nutrients we've talked about in those very foods. So when we talk about a balanced diet, those foods should be in every diet on every plate. But we all know that none of us achieve that on a regular basis, and certainly not on that daily basis that is recommended for a healthy diet. So it's very common with the processing of our foods these days that CoQ10 is literally processed out of our foods. And on top of it, we're not always choosing the foods that are CoQ10 rich. So there is a gap in terms of our diet. So we've looked at age and we've looked at diet. And the interesting thing here is it almost goes full circle, because if we don't get these nutrients in our diet and we aren't able to make them in the body, then there obviously are going to become some compromising situations in the body that possibly and very actually realistically set us up for some of the disease patterns we see, certainly the lifestyle diseases that we are impacted by. And so, of course, then the reason why we're living longer is because we're commonly medicated. And so that certainly helps. I mean, very clever medications, very targeted, do a good job, keep our cholesterol down, keep our blood pressure where it should be, try and regulate our sugar. Those are the common deficiencies in terms of our health that we have. So medications have, a big part to play. But the interesting thing, some of the medications and some of these common medications for some of those conditions I mentioned actually influence the way the body can synthesize or make CoQ10 and utilize it as well. So they actually, one of the side effects of some of these medications, particularly some of the cholesterol medications, actually hinder the use of CoQ10 in the body. So we've kind of set ourselves up for the problem, and then we medicate to counter it, but in actual fact, we can't get over it because the side effects of some of those medications actually keep the disease pattern going. So when we put all these things together simultaneously, the age component, the deficiency in our diet, and the medications, then we really are challenged in terms of the amount of CoQ10 that we are able to either access or utilize, or in fact manufacture. So what are the benefits then of taking CoQ10, and specifically of the Neolife one? Well, we're focusing, although I say it's necessary in every cell of the body, because we're focusing on energy, right at the cellular level, we're talking about overall energy and stamina. And because the heart is really considered to be the hardest working organ, it will need the most CoQ10. It will have lots of mitochondria and have a high need for energy and a high need for CoQ10 to produce that energy. Obviously, other organs are also hardworking, but we're focusing at Neolife and to position this product for ease of use, recognizing its energy component. Without it, there wouldn't be energy in the cell. And then we want to say, where would that energy be most specifically used? In the heart, and of course, all the muscles of the body. The heart is a muscle, the hardest working one. And all our muscles are skeletal muscles that will obviously enable us to move around and to have and use the energy that we manufacture. And then, of course, as I mentioned about some of the medications and some of the side effects, there are some medications on the market that people use for things, particularly cholesterol ones, in fact, commonly used. And one of the side effects is, in fact, sore muscles. And there's a well-known statistic that up to 25% of people who are prescribed this medication, in fact, stop taking it because of the discomfort that it causes. And it's because it's not the only reason, but one of the reasons is that it actually interferes with the pathway of CoQ10, which means we can't get energy to the muscle, which to some extent contributes to the soreness. Right, so this is the Neolife CoQ10 solution. It's got a mitochondrial energy complex. That is what the terminology is, because we are using it in the mitochondria specifically. That's where it's going to end up. That's where we are planning for it to end up. So we always have to talk about the neo-life differences. We don't have to, we always do, because there always are some. And I guess probably what I haven't really mentioned here is, in fact, our biggest neo-life difference is the fact that we have a very active scientific advisory board. And they, in fact, bring the neo-life differences to the products. So you will more often than not find that when we have an ingredient that is referenced like the main ingredient on the container, it's never the only thing on the product. And I'm always intrigued as to all the little bits and pieces that are put together. It's sort of like an engine. And we refine things and we fine tune them, and we make sure that everything's going to benefit from one another, and that the desired result is going to happen, come what may. So the first and foremost, the most important thing was that we wanted to try and source CoQ10 from a naturally sourced environment. And so we've gone to carbohydrates, rice and corn, and we've taken the CoQ10 and used nature to show us how it works and how it's made. So that's the main ingredient. But look what else we've put in here. Now, remember I talked energy and I talked membranes. So those of you who are familiar with our products will be familiar with words like lipids and sterols. Those are the oils that we get from whole grains. And so what we've done here is we've just introduced a little bit of what you might have got in treonine, not as concentrated by any means, and it certainly doesn't take the place of treonine, but it just makes sure that those membranes where this CoQ10 is going to work are structurally and functionally good. And we need those lipids and sterols from whole grains. And as I've mentioned before, sadly, people are not eating the whole grains that they should be eating on a daily basis. So we're putting those in the product to make sure that CoQ10 has a chance to work in a membrane that is of good quality. We've also got antioxidants. What do antioxidants do? They are protectors. So we want to protect the membranes that CoQ10 is going to work in. We want to protect CoQ10. And of course, CoQ10 has antioxidant properties of its own. That's an interesting part of this particular ingredient. It's sort of multifaceted. So it's a kind of protector of itself and a protector of the energy that it makes, but it also needs its environment to be protected, and that's what we're doing. So we put antioxidants, water-soluble ones from red grapes. Many of you will be familiar with flavonoids, so that comes from that sort of family. We went to rice and got some of the vitamin E components, because that'll be an oil-soluble protector. So the water-soluble one, the oil-soluble one. And then we've gone to different vegetable oils, coconut, rice bran oil, and then we've taken lecithin out of sunflower seeds. All of them play a part in actually making CoQ10 more bioavailable. Now, bioavailable means it's able to be absorbed and able to be used. And I think I've already highlighted, if we put a simultaneous combination of aging and diet and medications, sometimes that's the stumbling block. So we have made sure that we can get around all these little obstacles and enhance not just the protective factor, not just the membranes, but also actually enhance the bioavailability, the ability of this ingredient to be digested, to be absorbed, recognized, and therefore to be used. And then just something else we've added in, just again, additional things that just make this product a complete complex. L-cysteine, for example, not something we have to go and explain to a lot of people, but I want to give just you an idea of just how complete the picture actually is. Obviously, we are talking about getting nutrients from our food and having dietary gaps, which is what we choose to fill. But naturally, the body is far cleverer than you and I know, and it has its own systems, and some of these nutrients help those systems to work. And one of those nutrients is an amino acid that you'll be familiar with. It's on your list of amino acids on our protein products, but it's the limiting factor. It needs to be present in order that the body's own protective mechanisms kick into play inside the cell. So just to make sure that that actually happens, it's like an aside. It's not really specific to what we're talking about, but it's making sure that the environment all works together. It's quite amazing how these are neo-life differences. So sourced from nature, we've put various whole food sourced ingredients to make sure the membranes are good, the membranes are protected, the CoQ10 is protected, that it's recognized and absorbed, and that the cell is working optimally. Couldn't be more different from the other products in the market. I don't think we even have one on the market that is sourced from nature. And also, just to complete the picture, we have a very unique encapsulation technology, what we call our 3D technology. So we We know about how quickly the product will actually disintegrate, dissolve, and be dispersed. And we, because of our technology that we've created, and we've been pioneers, we have what we use an artificial stomach, we use an artificial intestine that we created and pioneered, and we can observe in a laboratory what is going to happen to that capsule when it is swallowed in a normal digestive environment. And we know that these capsules will digest and start digesting and getting to work within as little as 2 minutes. That's amazing. So there really isn't any reason for anyone to run out of energy, because, you know, this CoQ10 is going to get there and get to work as soon as you start swallowing it. So we are really very proud, and I think you should be too, of a product that is not just CoQ10 actually. It's got so much more to make sure that the body and the environment in which it's going to work is perfect and optimal, so that it can get to work for all of us and for all our cells, so that we can be at our energetic best. But of course, you might be saying, well, we've talked energy, and this is the treanin I was mentioning about the outer membrane. That's where we started. This product was introduced way back in the 1950s. That's how pioneering Neolife actually is. And it's still as relevant, probably more so today than it even was then, because our foods are more processed than ever. And people are not getting the whole grain concentrates, these oils that we should be having from the grains. Most people don't associate grains with oils. And that's the problem. We think of them as starchy carbohydrates. The oil is completely processed out of those whole grains. And that's where treanin came in, to make sure that our membranes, every cell membrane, would be in good quality and good condition. So we've gone inside the cell now. Treanin enables the CoQ10 to get absorbed by the cell in the first place, so that it can actually get itself to the mitochondria and do its job. So treanin most certainly stays in the picture. But we add CoQ10 to make sure that we now cover all the energy components that our cells will require. And there's a little bit of treanin in the product itself, actually. So should someone just take it as standalone product, they're getting all those benefits there too. We haven't simply neglected to put all the things that are needed for CoQ10 to be optimally used. Quite amazing. And if we take our customer from treanin to Pro Vitality, which contains treanin plus a whole lot more, well, then we simply add CoQ10 for all those benefits. So we're super boosting our overall energy and stamina in an amazing way. So I hope you're excited about that. This is what we obviously have: our core nutrition, of which treanin would be a component in Pro Vitality. But we have all different systems in the body that, as you know, and you've heard now, require energy, and they require different nutrients to make sure that they function optimally. And they select them as they need them from the dietary foods that we eat. So in order to make this easier for us to apply in terms of how we're going to introduce CoQ10 to our customers, because they will be using some of our other products, we're sort of focusing on the energy and fitness component. But remember, we're talking about energy throughout the body. So actually, it really influences all those other systems anyway. We all need them for every system of the body. But if we were trying to focus on what we would do with CoQ10 as a starting point, why would I use it? Well, because I'm going to be more energetic, simply because all my organs are working better. My cells are producing energy at the rate they love to do. And I, as a person, and you as a person using it, are going to be feeling our maximum energy value. And of course, because we believe the heart is the hardest working organ, we want to focus to make sure that it gets the energy that it can pump that 100,000 times a day for you. And bear in mind that many of the disease patterns that we see, and we're not always talking diseases, but they're so prevalent, you know, especially our lifestyle diseases. That's one of our mission, the biggest part of our mission, is to start to combat that, to make a turn in that trend, to end that trend of lifestyle diseases. And even when one thinks one hasn't got something related, maybe a kidney disease or even diabetes, actually what ends up being the final problem at the end of the day is that the heart actually gives up. And so if we can keep that heart pumping at its optimal level by giving it adequate amounts of CoQ10, in spite of all the other things that are going on around it, it can still keep doing its job, even though energy is being used and dispersed and taken because it's needed for other conditions that are pressing at the time. The heart needs to keep beating. And so that's why we're focusing very specifically on that. And quite honestly, cardiologists recommend CoQ10. As I say, it's not foreign to the medical fraternity at all. So the dosage is 2 capsules a day. They're oil soluble, so it's preferable to take with a meal. And it provides 100 milligrams, which is actually the clinically recognized quantity that would be impactful in the diet. And it's naturally sourced CoQ10 that we are supplying to the body, along, of course, with all the other factors and cofactors that are going to make it work more optimally.